She said that Paul had forced her to take part in the attacks against her will. Carla also told them that all the physical proof they needed was in the couple's house on video.
When it came together, it was the aha moment. It's the, oh yeah, it makes perfect sense now. That you could see that escalation, the escalation that we dreaded early on in the Scarborough rapes.
Word quickly spread that there'd been a breakthrough in 3 of Canada's biggest unsolved criminal cases, the Scarborough rapist and the murders of Kristen French and Leslie Mahaffey. Police knew they had to move fast before Paul Bernardo tried to make a run for it. On the 17th of February 1993, the police arrested Bernardo. Investigators began searching his Port Dalhousie home.
I will confirm for you this morning that we have obtained the search warrant. We entered the premise and began our work.
During a 71-day search, the police could not find the videotapes which Carla claimed showed the attacks on Leslie, Kristen and Tammy. Carla's word was all the prosecutors had to go on if they wanted to move forward and press charges against Paul Bernardo. Given her extensive knowledge of the crimes and her willingness to testify, Carla's attorney was able to arrange a plea agreement with prosecutors.
They made a deal with Bernardo Homolka because they had no choice. They did not have direct evidence linking Paul Bernardo to the murder victims.
In exchange for her testimony against her husband, Carla would receive a reduced sentence for her involvement in the murders. The deal was kept secret from the public. The 28th of June 1993, Carla appeared in court to face the charges against her. Although journalists were allowed in the courtroom, they were only allowed to report on the charges and sentence. This restriction was uncommon in Canadian courts and frustrated many reporters.
The publication ban actually spurred the media to write even more about what they didn't know, to write even more about their unanswered questions, and to stir up public indignation about the public right to know being denied.
It suddenly dawned on us how big this case was and how brutal and how awful and how psychologically twisted this case was.
In court, Carla's attorney portrayed her as an abused wife, forced to participate in her husband's criminal activities. Carla was convicted on manslaughter charges stemming from her involvement in the murders of Kristen French and Leslie Mahaffey. She received 2 12-year sentences. The terms were to be served concurrently.
She had received what everybody thought was described as the deal of the century. What she had participated in, though, was not generally known publicly.
The light sentence unleashed widespread speculation about a secret plea agreement.
Since her plea was not allowed to be publicized, it was inferred that it must have been a guilty plea.
According to the government, the plea agreement and the full facts of the case were being kept secret to ensure a fair trial for Paul Bernardo. The public was divided about being left in the dark.
Hear no justice, see no justice, speak no justice. The law's an ass.
All we need to know is that justice is served. We don't need to know what the girls went through.
Carla Homolka was sent to Kingston Prison for Women. In August 1993, while in prison, Carla filed for divorce. The next time she'd see Paul was in court, testifying against him. It was then that the full, shocking details of the couple's crimes would be made public.
The interest in this case was not sparked so much by the brutality of the murders. It was essentially fed by disbelief that such an attractive man and such a beautiful young girl could team up and be involved in something so bad. I mean, the Americans coined them Ken and Barbie, and you know, there was something to be said about that.
Ken and Barbie's darkest secrets would soon be revealed when the couple's missing videotapes finally surfaced. The 18th of May 1995, Toronto. Day 1 of the trial of Paul Bernardo, one of the most anticipated murder trials in Canadian history. People queued for blocks to try and get a seat inside. Scarborough native Paul Bernardo pleaded not guilty to 9 charges in connection with the deaths of Leslie Mahaffey and Kristen French, including kidnapping unlawful confinement, aggravated sexual assault, and murder. His now ex-wife, Karla Homolka, was already serving time in prison for her role in the crimes. After agreeing to testify against Paul, Karla was serving a 12-year sentence. Inside the courtroom, the day began with some powerful new evidence for prosecutors, 6 videotapes found in the couple's home.
That was the first time that they had direct evidence against not only Paul Bernardo, but Karla Homolka.
Much to the court's surprise, the tapes revealed a very different version of events. Karla had misled the authorities about her involvement in the crimes. On the videos, she was seen fully participating in the attacks. Had the tapes surfaced earlier, they could have affected her infamous plea deal.
The tapes were crucial evidence. They were the smoking gun.
On one tape, Karla was seen raping her own sister.
She assaulted her sister, captured on videotape. The idea that one sister would offer up a younger sister as some sort of a present without a gun being held to their head seems bizarre in the extreme. It was absolutely mind-boggling.
In court, the defense maintained that any crimes committed by Bernardo stopped short of murder.
We had this sort of history to work on, that all of his sexual assaults, the women had lived. It was only when he was in this very close interaction with Karla that they didn't. Paul Bernardo insisted from right from the beginning, and I'm sure does to this day, that he was not the killer and that Karla was.
On the 19th of June 1995, Karla Homolka went to court to testify against her ex-husband. She told the court that she was a victim and that Bernardo was the mastermind behind all 3 murders. On cross-examination, the defense played the videotapes, which showed Karla's active participation in the assaults. She used battered spouse syndrome as her explanation, a claim sharply disputed by Paul's attorney.
I'm not suggesting for a moment that she was not abused by him. What I'm saying is that she could not be classified as a person suffering from a battered spouse syndrome.
I think in battered spouse syndrome that we're talking about people having tremendous psychological abuse. As I see it, she was more of an accomplice in these horrible crimes than a victim of these crimes.
Paul Bernardo's trial lasted nearly 4 months. In an effort to spare the families more grief, the judge allowed the jury to see the graphic videotapes, while the public was only allowed to hear the audio.
Professionally speaking, I was disappointed that we didn't see the tapes. Personally speaking, I'm glad we didn't see the tapes.
The audio revealed Paul Bernardo's modus operandi as used in the Scarborough rape cases.
He got them to repeat over and over and over again that they'll do anything he wanted, that he's the king.
After hearing the testimony of 86 witnesses, the jury of 8 men and 4 women deliberated for 8 hours before reaching their verdict. The 1st of September 1995, 31-year-old Paul Bernardo was found guilty of all 9 charges against him, including 2 counts of first-degree murder for killing 15-year-old Kristen French and 14-year-old Leslie Mahaffey. The parents of both girls were pleased that Bernardo was behind bars, but their nightmare wasn't over.
Only the trial is over. Leslie is still not coming home.
Paul Bernardo was sentenced to life in prison with eligibility for parole in 25 years. After his conviction, he confessed to the manslaughter of Karla's younger sister, Tammy, and the sexual assaults of 14 other women in the Scarborough area. Those admissions led the judge to declare him a dangerous offender, meaning he'll probably spend the rest of his life in jail without chance of parole.
The controversy sort of rages around, was Karla given too light a sentence? Did she get off on this thing, so to speak, get off way too lightly? And that's certainly the opinion of a lot of folks, that she is. I have my concern that she may be more psychopathic than Paul.
Even though Carla Homolka had misled the authorities about her role in the assaults, prosecutors decided not to challenge the plea agreement. The decision, they said, was final.
I'm not a lawyer, but as I understand the law, once the deal was cut in Canada, they had to honor the deal.
Carla's plea deal became known as one of the worst in Canadian history. The media dubbed it the deal with the devil. The controversy surrounding Paul Bernardo and Carla Homolka's crimes did not end with the verdicts. The following year, the Ontario court released the results of a 6-month inquiry into the police's handling of the Paul Bernardo case. They concluded that the investigation was hampered by numerous errors and that Bernardo fell through the cracks simply by moving from one community to another. Since the inquiry, Canadian authorities have implemented a new system for tracking serial predators. Their goal is to improve communication between police departments. On the 4th of July 2005, 35-year-old Carla was released from prison, having served 12 years behind bars. Although she'd served her full sentence, many felt that was not long enough, given the role she'd played in the crimes.
My personal feeling is she got off light. I think that she has more culpability for this than she was punished for. But she's out, and so all we can do now is hope that she doesn't harm anyone else.
Unable to comfortably return to her hometown of St. Catharines, Carla Homolka decided to start again in French-speaking Montreal.
She could come out in Quebec, basically an unknown person, and she could get on with her life and become a normal person, and that's exactly what she's tried to do.
Carla says she still has nightmares about the girls and feels remorse for what she did.
She should be scrutinized. She shouldn't just be allowed to, ride off into the sunset.
In February 2007, less than 2 years after her release from prison, Carla Homolka gave birth to a baby boy.
Carla Homolka has a tough life ahead. How do you deal with what happened there? And how on earth is she going to break it to her child what happened?
She's out there in the community, and so we all, not only for her sake, but for all of our sakes, have to hope that she's going to do well.
From my perspective, she had served her sentence. It was she's entitled to be released, and she's entitled to go about her life as best she can, and that's the way the system is. Would I want her living next door? No.
Well, next tonight, a brand new series of Snapped gets underway with the case of Kimberly Cunningham, who found out her sister's boyfriend had been abusing her daughter for years and just snapped, shooting him 8 times.